One of the more interesting features of Vue is two-way data binding. Two-way data binding is the ability to update data through the HTML document or JavaScript file. That seems like it would be difficult to manage or pull off, but it's easy with Vue. Before we check out two-way data binding, let's surround the expression with a pair of paragraph tags. Then, we'll add a horizontal line right under it. We're adding these in for better formatting. Next, create two input fields and labels for the first name and last name properties in the data object. Let's refresh the page to see the final result. You will have something similar to what I have. The input fields are ready. Nothing will happen if we type inside them. That's to be expected. Now the question is, how do we tie these input fields to the data? The answer to that question is with directives. Vue provides directives for linking the data inside the input fields to the data inside your Vue instance. Back inside the document, we're going to start with the first name input field. We're going to add the directive called vModel. The value for this directive will be the expression first name. The values for directives are interpreted as expressions. Some directives don't require values, such as the vcloak directive we used in the previous lecture. However, the vModel directive does require a value, which is an expression. The value that gets evaluated from the expression will be used as the input field's value. You may notice that I'm not adding the curly brackets. Directives automatically assume the value is an expression. We don't need to add curly brackets. In fact, let's see what happens if we tried adding in some curly brackets. Afterward, we'll refresh the page. The application will throw an error. The console in the developer tools tells us that there was an error with compiling the template. It says that we have an invalid expression. The value for the vModel directive is already prepared to take in an expression. The fact that we're passing in another expression means we're trying to run an expression from within an expression. No wonder Vue doesn't like this. I'm going to remove the curly brackets. Then, I'll refresh the page. The application is functional again. The input field is pre-filled with the data from the first name property. If we were to update the input, then the full name above gets updated too. This update is something that Vue will perform automatically for you. Because we're using the vModel directive, Vue will keep track of changes to the input field. If a change occurs, it'll update the data in our application. The data it updates depends on the value we used for the directive. This includes any methods that use the data. We don't have to worry about calling the function again because it's automatically called for us behind the scenes. This automation is what's called reactivity. Reactivity is the process of updating the document whenever the data changes. Once a change happens, Vue will look at the template. It'll identify any expressions that need to get evaluated again. The template then gets updated with the new values. Vue does a good job of keeping track of everything for you. If we were to use vanilla JavaScript, the code would look something like this. First, we would select the input field. Notice how I'm grabbing the input field by its ID. Without an ID, I could mistakenly grab the wrong input field. After grabbing the input, an event listener is attached with the keyUp event. If the event is triggered, the paragraph's inner text is updated with the input field's value. We can achieve the same results with vanilla JavaScript, but there are a few problems with this approach. The first is having to assign IDs and classes to the elements. There's a bit of management that has to go on. We're dealing with an input field and paragraph. What would this look like if we had hundreds of elements? It would get complicated quickly. Vue solves this issue elegantly with reactivity. It's keeping track of the data. It's also listening to events that could potentially change the data. If the data changes, it'll know exactly where to apply those changes without assigning classes or IDs to the document. I'm going to update the name again. As I'm typing into the input field, the name gets updated in real time. This is reactivity in action. In traditional websites, you would have to refresh the page whenever the data was updated. However, with Vue, the updates occur immediately. Vue takes this a step further by allowing us to use two-way data binding. Two-way data binding is the idea where if the data in the document is updated, then the data in the JavaScript code is updated as well. Vice versa, if the data in JavaScript were updated, then the data in the document will also get updated. We can see two-way data binding in action by opening the console in the developer tools. In the console, we're going to access the VM object, which contains the Vue instance because that's where we stored it. Then, we're going to access the first name data property. From the looks of it, the value in the instance has been updated. It matches the exact value in the input field. This time, if I were to update the value with JavaScript, I would see the changes reflected in the document. Surely enough, it does get updated. This feature is called two-way data binding. Any changes in the document will be reflected in the instance. Any changes in the JavaScript Vue instance will be reflected in the document. All we had to do was define the data property and attach the vModel directive to the input field. Let's try a simple exercise. The last name doesn't get updated. Try attaching a directive to the input for the last name. Pause the video and give it a try. Welcome back. If you are able to take on the challenge, then that's great. If not, that's fine as well. We'll do it together. Pulling this off is dead simple. On the input element for the last name, we're going to add the vModel directive with the expression last name. That's it. There's nothing else we need to do. Go ahead and refresh the page. If you were to update the last name above would update as well. That's the exact behavior we were looking for. That wraps it up for this lecture. We'll continue in the next one.